Welcome to the second pathway in the series, Cultivating the Attributes of the Heart. The second attribute of the heart to self-cultivate is courage. The French word for heart is cœur, the root of courage. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's being able to act in the face of fear. Aristotle tells us that a virtue is not the opposite of a vice, but is the golden mean between two vices. So cowardice is not the opposite of courage, but courage is the golden mean between cowardice on one side and foolhardiness on the other. So courage doesn't mean doing dumb things. It means doing the right thing even when your heart is pounding. On a biological level, there are two little walnuts in your brain called the amygdala. The job of the amygdala is to scan the horizon for danger. When it perceives danger in the environment, it sets off a cascade of chemical reactions in the body in what's called the HPA axis. The part of the brain, called the hypothalamus, tells the pituitary gland to signal the adrenal glands to secrete adrenaline. This activates what's called the sympathetic nervous system. Whoa, that's a lot of words. The key is, when you think you're about to get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger, you either run, fight, or freeze. Now, with people who are stuck, they more often than not freeze. Now, having this system in the body is a good thing. If we had no fear, we'd probably be dead. You'd jump off buildings or stand in front of moving cars. Now, of course, there's this guy Alex Honnold who climbed El Capitan, a 3,000-foot sheer wall without a rope. It's reported that his amygdala just doesn't work. Now, somehow he has survived, but for most of us, many times we need this system to protect us from things like sheer drops. However, our system has kinks, and sometimes the amygdala tells us we're in danger when we're not. Here we get back to the ratio theory of anxiety that we learned about in a previous video. Do you remember that? A ratio is like a fraction. There's a number on top, a line, and then a number on the bottom. What's on top is what we imagine the task ahead of us to be. The number on the bottom is our perception of how well we can handle that task. If we don't believe we can handle the task in front of us, we'll feel anxiety and probably avoid or freeze. Now, if the task is going to Dunkin' Donuts, we probably believe we can handle it, and so you won't feel anxiety. But if you're sure you're going to get into a car accident on the way because you don't trust yourself driving, you will have anxiety. The key word here is perception. If we perceive we can't handle some situation, sometimes because of our own capacity, and sometimes because of the perceived risk or danger, or both, we're going to react as if we're about to get eaten. The HPA thing will kick in, our flight, fight, freeze reaction will happen, and we'll probably avoid getting in the car. But the question we need to ask ourselves when our body is freaking out is, how might my perception be wrong? Maybe the perceived stressor, the task ahead of you, isn't as hard as you believe. Or maybe you're far more capable of handling it than you know. Your body is signaling that you're going to fall off a 3,000-foot wall, when maybe all that you need to do is send your resume to somebody or make a toast at your friend's wedding. For most people who are stuck, the number one fear is the fear of humiliation. So I'll give you an example. A client of mine wanted to do stand-up comedy. He wrote really funny stories. Anyone who heard them cracked up. They were really good. But every time he tried to take action, to go to an open mic or post something on TikTok, he froze in terror and wouldn't do it. He projected that no one would like his routines. No one would laugh. He'd bomb, as they say in showbiz. In other words, he feared humiliation, negative public exposure, and his body told him that he wouldn't be able to handle this feeling. So you see, he wasn't so much afraid of the thing that would happen on the outside. He was really afraid of what would happen on the inside, which was an emotion he didn't think he could tolerate. And that fear of humiliation taps right into our feelings of shame and the control of the tyrant. And so, he was stuck. Having not done the thing he was scared of, he actually ended up in a bad situation. For a while, he got high all day, every day, instead, and drank to excess every weekend. He had a miserable job he hated, with no creative satisfaction. He humiliated himself for not taking the action that he wanted to take. Because he neither pursued his passion, nor gave it up and got some well-paying job, the situation he ended up in was far worse than what he feared if he would have taken the action. He didn't have enough money to pay his rent, and he had to live in his car for a while. As part of our work together, he committed to doing something not only scary every day, but something that could bring up feelings of humiliation. The great comedians, the great stand-up people go up on stage taking the risk with about half of their material. They have the courage to bomb because they know that is the way to not only work out their routines, but also to build the attribute of courage. The more they practice humiliation, the easier it gets. Rather than avoiding this uncomfortable feeling, he leaned into it. He knew that he was using drugs to not feel these uncomfortable sensations in his body, and this made it easy for him to avoid the whole thing. So he knew that part of cultivating courage was getting clean and sober. He started putting up short TikToks of his comedy. Once he repeated that enough, he was able to turn that into a habit. He got to open mics early, so he was able to do his bit in front of audiences. Sometimes they laughed, and sometimes they didn't. But what he discovered was that he survived. And he even developed a sense of humor about the times he got crickets. He would still shake right before he got on stage, and he'd want to run away. But once he hit the stage, within a minute, he was in a groove. With time, it got easy to act in the face of fear. He started gaining followers on social media. He's learning how to market himself. He's still struggling to make money. It's not easy in showbiz these days, but he's a lot happier and he's moving in a positive direction. He made a YouTube comedy special and he's on his way to making another. Now when he does his day job, it doesn't drive him as crazy because he's got a purpose in life. One of the practices of the Bhakti Marga, or path of devotion, is that in order to cultivate courage, you need to do something that's scary every day. This doesn't mean taking unreasonable risks. It means recognizing when our fears are unreasonable and acting though our body is telling us to run away. This and other exercises are available in the Cultivating Courage pathway that follows this video. Give them a try and let me know how it goes. On the next pathway, I'll get into the next attribute of the heart that you need to cultivate in order to have your best life: strength. See you then, and thanks for listening.